The cathedral's silence was heavier than before, as though the very air awaited my next move with bated breath. I found myself drawn inexorably to a section of wall near the altar, where the stone was cracked and worn, bearing inscriptions so faint I could barely discern them. Kneeling down, I brushed away centuries of dust and debris, and a soft, spectral glow began to emanate from the ancient script, illuminating the dark corners around me. The words were in Latin, but as if by some unearthly aid, their meaning unfurled before my mind like a dark melody. These inscriptions told a story of desperation and hope twisted into a nightmare. Father Ambrose, a priest of great conviction, had once tended this cathedral with a pure heart and an unshakable faith. But as the choir's voices faltered and death claimed his beloved singers, his hope gave way to obsession. The hymns, once vibrant and full of life, were fading, and with them, the soul of the cathedral itself. In a vision, the air thickened and the cathedral's shadows deepened. I was transported to another time, standing just behind Father Ambrose. His hands trembled as he prepared the ritual, the flickering candlelight casting grotesque shapes on the walls. Blood-deep crimson and impossibly fresh was drawn from a chalice and smeared over the choir stalls. His voice, though cracking with age and fear, chanted words older than the stones beneath us, invoking a covenant between life, death, and music. I watched as the ritual unfolded, a desperate attempt to preserve the choir's voices beyond mortal limits. The air shimmered with power, a dark harmony that bound the singers' souls to the cathedral in a curse more than a blessing. Father Ambrose's face was a mask of sorrow and resolve. He knew the price, but chose to pay it nonetheless. As the last note of the ritual echoed, the choir was transformed, no longer alive, yet never truly dead, trapped in an endless, blood-soaked hymn. The vision faded, leaving me breathless and cold. I sank to the cold floor, the weight of the past pressing down like the stone itself. Then, from the gloom, a figure emerged, Sister Miriam. Her pale form flickered like a candle's flame, her eyes glowing faintly red in the dim light. She did not speak outright, but whispered fragmented warnings, her voice a thread woven into the choir's eternal song. "The covenant binds," she intoned, "and none who hear the hymn escape unscathed. The blood calls, the music consumes, and the soul is the price." Her presence was both a balm and a torment. Though ethereal, she carried the weight of centuries of regret, a reminder of the humanity lost within these walls. I reached out instinctively, but my hand passed through her, as if she were woven of smoke and sorrow. The cathedral itself seemed to respond to her words. The shadows pulsed, the stained glass flickered with spectral lights, and the distant echoes of the ancient hymn swelled around me. It was as if the stones breathed, alive with the choir's lament, the voices of the damned eternally entwined with the music Father Ambrose had conjured. I rose, heart pounding, mind racing. The knowledge of the past had given me clarity, yet it deepened the dread that had been creeping beneath my skin since I first heard that haunting melody. Father Ambrose had tried to save what he loved with a forbidden ritual, but his salvation had become a curse, a dark covenant that now threatened to claim me. The question that haunted me now was simple yet terrifying. Could understanding the motives behind the ritual give me the strength to resist the choir's grasp? Or was I already too entwined in their unending song? As I moved away from the wall, the echoes of that ancient hymn followed. A reminder that some melodies are not meant to be silenced, and some blood binds forever. I whispered a vow into the cold air, the words lost amid the cathedral's endless chorus. I would find a way through this darkness, or be consumed by it. And somewhere in the depths of the cathedral, the choir sang on. The cathedral's oppressive silence was broken only by the faint echo of distant hymns, weaving through the fractured stained glass and cracked stone walls. I stood alone in the nave, the chill biting through my threadbare coat as the last pale rays of daylight struggled to pierce the gloom. My breath hung in the cold air like a fragile mist, trembling with the weight of memories I tried desperately to suppress. A sudden shimmer caught my azure fractured stained glass window, shattered long ago, now casting a kaleidoscope of fractured colors upon the marble floor. The light danced and fractured, painting the cathedral's cold bones with fleeting warmth. And there, within that prism of shattered beauty, she appeared. Lena. Her form was more shadow than substance, her edges soft and blurred, as if the very air bent to hold her fragile shape. She wore the flowing white dress I remembered, the one she wore the night we last played our duet under the stars. Her face was serene, yet etched with a sorrow that mirrored my own. Her eyes, once so vibrant, now held the weight of 1,000 silent goodbyes. "Elias," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread of sound that wove itself into the cathedral's eternal hymn. It was a lullaby we had once shared, a melody of hope and tenderness now drowned in the cathedral's shadows. I reached out, my fingers trembling, yearning to touch what the cold air would not allow. Her gaze met mine, a silent plea, a desperate longing that pierced through the veil of time and death. The cathedral seemed to hold its breath, the ancient stones absorbing the fragile moment. But the comfort was fleeting. As the light faded and the hymn swelled, Lena's form wavered, dissolving into the spectral mist like a half-remembered dream. I staggered back, clutching a tattered sheet of music I had found in the choir, stores its ink smudged and faded, much like my own fading resolve. Sitting amid the ruined choir stalls, I unfolded the brittle pages, the notes ghosting beneath my fingertips. Each mark was a fragment of a song that once inspired, now a cruel reminder of the silence that plagued my mind. The music was incomplete, broken by time and neglect, just as I was broken by loss. Then, from the corner of my vision, she appeared again, Lena, reaching out with translucent fingers that barely brushed my skin. The touch sent a shiver through me, a tempest of memories crashing against the fragile walls of my sanity. Her presence was both balm and poison, soothing yet tormenting, an echo of a love lost to the cruel march of time. "Don't forget," she seemed to say, her voice entwined with the cathedral's melancholy hymn. "Remember the music, Elias. Remember us." But how could I remember without being consumed? How could I embrace the past without surrendering to the darkness that now clung to these walls? I wandered further into the cathedral's labyrinthine corridors, my footsteps swallowed by the vast emptiness. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, their slow rhythmic thrum in time with the choir's eternal song. Somewhere ahead, I heard her laughter, soft, distant, and hauntingly familiar, mingling with the spectral voices that whispered from the shadows. Reality blurred. Memory and madness entwined in a dance as old as grief itself. Was she truly there, or merely a fragment of my fractured mind, conjured by the cathedral's unyielding sorrow? The crypt beckoned, a cold sanctuary where broken pews lay scattered like forgotten bones. I sank to my knees among the ruins, the weight of despair pressing down like the stone above me. And there, hovering just beyond reach, Lena's ghostly form watched over me, her eyes reflecting a vulnerability and yearning that matched my own. No words passed between us, only the silent language of shared pain and unspoken longing. In that moment, the cathedral's oppressive shadows softened, wrapped in the fragile embrace of a love that death could not sever. Yet even as hope flickered, the darkness pressed closer. The choir's unending hymn echoed louder, a sinister reminder that solace was but a fleeting illusion here. My grief was a fragile thread, fraying beneath the strain of the cathedral's curse, threatening to unravel the last vestiges of my will. Could I hold on to my memories without becoming lost within them? Could I find the strength to face the haunting lament of my past and still resist the choir's relentless call? The answers lay hidden in the shadows, whispered in the music of the damned. And as Lena's spectral form faded once more into the gloom, I knew the struggle had only just begun. The cathedral was alive with sorrow, and so was I, bound by memories, haunted by loss. I stood at the edge of a darkness deeper than any I had ever known. The lament of Lena, my muse and my curse, would guide me through the night or drag me into eternal silence. I took a shaky breath, steeling myself against the encroaching despair. The hymn called, but I was not yet ready to join its eternal refrain. Not yet. The night was far from over, and the crimson choir awaited. The cathedral was silent for a heartbeat of fragile, trembling pause that seemed unsteady, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. Then, like a ripple over a darkened lake, the haunting melody returned. This time, it was clearer, more insistent, curling and twisting around the cracked stone pillars and shattered stained glass. It was no longer just a distant echo, but a living, breathing force that pressed against my skin and slid into my ears like cold fingers. I stood motionless in the nave, the space around me vast and cavernous, lit only by shards of moonlight filtering through broken windows. The hymn was sung by voices I could not see in seen throats, weaving a tapestry of sound that was both beautiful and grotesque. The notes rose and fell in a cadence that defied logic, a spectral choir whose song was threaded with sorrow and menace. Then, from the shadows, they emerged. Figures coalesced from the darkness, blood-stained and broken, their outlines flickering as if caught between this world and the next. Their faces were distorted, features stretched into silent screams that opened in wordless song. They bore the marks of the ritual stains of crimson that pooled and pulsed beneath ragged robes, eyes glinting with unnatural light. The choir had come alive, their presence palpable and oppressive. My breath caught, heart hammering in my chest. They surrounded me, their voices rising in unison, a chilling harmony that seeped into my bones. The song was no longer just music. It was a command, an invocation that resonated with a terrible hunger. "Join us," they intoned, the phrase echoing through the cathedral like a curse. "Sing with us forever." I staggered backward, mind reeling. The melody wrapped around me, tugging at my thoughts, invading my senses. I felt the blood beneath my skin quicken, the rhythm of the hymn syncing with my heartbeat. It was a pull I could not resist, a dark covenant seeping into my soul. The choir's demand was clear and merciless: surrender to their eternal song or be consumed by the shadows that birthed it. I clenched my fists, the fragments of my will fighting to hold firm. "I'm not yours," I whispered, voice trembling but defiant. "I won't be part of your curse." Their faces twisted into expressions that were almost pity, almost sorrow, and yet beneath it all lay a hunger as ancient as the stones themselves. The cathedral seemed to pulse, walls throbbing with the sinister rhythm, the stained glass bleeding color into the darkness. Reality wavered, the line between nightmare and waking blurred. A spectral hand reached toward me, fingers like tendrils of smoke and blood. I recoiled but felt the cold seep into my skin. The choir's voices crescendoed, a crescendo that threatened to drown out my reason. "Join us," they whispered again, and this time the words were inside my head, a chorus that refused to be denied. Memories of Lena flashed before Mitha, warmth of her smile, the ache of her absence, fueling my resolve, even as despair clawed at the edges of my mind. I would not be lost to this unending hymn. Summoning every shred of strength, I shouted, "No." The cathedral shuddered, the song faltering for a heartbeat before surging anew. The choir's demand was relentless, a tidal wave of sound and shadow. I was caught in the eye of a storm that threatened to swallow me whole. And yet, in that moment of terrifying clarity, I understood this was more than a fight for survival. It was a struggle for my essence, my very identity. To join the choir was to surrender my soul to an eternal damnation veiled in music. To resist was to face oblivion alone. The hymn enveloped me once more, a dark covenant etched in blood and sound. The cathedral waited, patient and eternal, for my answer. I stood at the crossroads of fate, the choir's demand ringing in my ears, and the weight of my choice pressed down like the stones above. Would I join the crimson choir's eternal hymn, or would I fight to reclaim the fragments of myself before the song consumed me completely? The answer hung in the air, as heavy and uncertain as the shadows that clung to the cathedral's walls. And the music played on. The cathedral was no longer just a hollow shell of ancient stones and shattered glass. It had become a living organism, pulsing with a heartbeat that matched the sinister hymn winding its way through every crack and crevice. I stood in the nave, the vastness of the space swallowing me whole. Yet the oppressive presence felt as intimate as the blood pounding in my veins. The stained glass windows, fractured and fragmented, cast jagged shards of crimson light that danced like dying embers on the cold marble floor. Each flicker of red seemed to seep into my skin, bleeding into my consciousness. The music, no longer mere sound, was a force that invaded my very being. It slithered beneath my skin, a venomous melody that twisted and churned within my blood. My chest tightened as if the hymn had wrapped itself around my heart, squeezing with relentless rhythm. I gasped, clutching at my ribcage, desperate to draw breath that felt increasingly shallow and tainted. The voices of the choir swelled, a chorus of disembodied throats singing in unison. Their notes both beautiful and grotesque, a siren call that promised both salvation and damnation. The walls themselves seemed to breathe. With every rise and fall of the choir's song, the ancient stones pulsed and shifted, as if the cathedral's very bones were alive and complicit in this dark symphony. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, figures distorted and blood-stained, their faces twisted in eternal song. They were the crimson choir, unseen yet omnipresent, their presence suffocating and seductive. I staggered forward, my fingers scraping against the cracked marble of a broken choir stall. The cold surface sent a jolt through me, but beneath my touch, I felt something else of faint warmth, like the echo of blood, long dried but never forgotten. The crimson stains seemed to shimmer, alive with an unnatural light, as if the cathedral itself bled for its cursed congregation. The hymn crescendoed, a wave of sound that crashed over me, threatening to drown my senses and erode the fragile barrier I clung to between sanity and oblivion. My mind frayed under the relentless assault. Moments of clarity flickered like dying candles amid the engulfing darkness. I could still hear the faint echo of my own fractured thoughts, struggling to resist the choir's call. "Join us," the voices whispered, a chorus of temptation and despair. "Sing with us forever." But resistance came at a cost. My body trembled violently, sweat slicking my pale skin as the music clawed deeper. The line between my own voice and the choir's blurred. I found myself humming fragments of the cursed hymn, my lips trembling with words I did not intend to speak. The melody was no longer external, it was within me, a dark covenant forged in blood and song. I collapsed against the marble, the cold stone grounding me, even as the cathedral threatened to consume my soul. The shadows pressed closer, the spectral figures reaching out with ethereal hands, their mournful faces etched with eternal sorrow and insatiable hunger. I felt their despair seep into my bones, a shared torment that bound us across the abyss of time. In that crucible of agony and fascination, I understood the true horror of the Crimson Choir. They were not mere malevolent spirits, but tragic victims, ensnared by their own desire for immortality through music. Their eternal hymn was both their curse and their prison, a song that promised everlasting life but demanded the sacrifice of self. As the final notes of the hymn echoed through the cathedral, I faced the unthinkable truth. With each passing moment, the music claimed more of me. The cathedral was alive, its heartbeats synchronized with the cursed choir, and I was becoming part of its unending requiem. Could I hold on to the remnants of my own soul, or would I succumb to the crimson tide, lost forever in the eternal song? The answer lingered in the heavy air, a note suspended between hope and despair, waiting for the next chord to strike. The cathedral's shadowed nave stretched before me, a vast cavern of silence punctuated only by the faintest echoes of the distant hymn that seemed to seep from the very cracks in the stone. As I stood amidst the shattered pews and fractured stained glass, a chill swept through the unnatural cold that clung to my skin like a second shroud. It was then that she appeared, Sister Miriam. Her figure coalesced from the gloom with an ethereal grace, pale as the moonlight filtering through the broken windows. The tattered habit that draped her slender frame fluttered softly, as though caught in a breeze no one else could feel. But it was her eyes, those faintly glowing, sorrowful red orbs, that held me captive. They burned with a mixture of anguish and compassion, a silent plea that seemed to reach directly into my fractured soul. "Elias," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread woven into the cathedral's mournful hymn. "You must listen, there is no time." I swallowed hard, the weight of her presence pressing down on me. "Who are you?" I managed, though the answer was already clear in the haunted depths of those eyes. "I am what remains of Sister Miriam," she said, her gaze drifting to the shattered altar. "Once caretaker of this sacred place, now bound as the choir's lament, caught between worlds." Her words stirred something deep within me, a mixture of dread and a flicker of hope. "How did this happen?" I asked, stepping closer despite the chill that gnawed at my bones. "Long ago," she began, "the choir was blessed with divine song. But in desperation to preserve their gift, Father Ambrose enacted a ritual of blood, unholy covenant that chained our souls to the cathedral in eternal hymn. I was among those who tended the choir, a servant to their voices, but the ritual's corruption claimed us all." She paused, her form wavering like a candle flame caught in a draught. I fought to hold on to my will, to remember who I was before the darkness took me, but the curse is relentless. I felt the edges of my own sanity fraying at her words. The cathedral's oppressive atmosphere pressed closer, the unseen hymn swelling in my ears, threatening to drown out my resolve. Yet, in her presence, I sensed a fragile Bacana shard of resistance. "Is there a way to break the curse?" I asked, desperation threading my voice. Her eyes met mine with a flicker of something almost like hope. "Perhaps, but the path is perilous." From within the folds of her habit, she produced a small talisman, stained faintly with dried blood, but etched with intricate symbols that seemed to pulse faintly with an inner light. "Take this," she urged, pressing it into my trembling hand. It holds a fragment of the old prayers, a sliver of protection against the choir's claim. Use it wisely, Elias. I clutched the talisman tightly, the cool metal grounding me amid the swirling tide of fear and despair. Why help me? Because, she said softly, if another soul falls, the choir's song grows stronger. And if you can break the covenant, perhaps I can finally find peace. Her form began to fade, the faint glow of her eyes dimming as the distant hymn rose in fervor. Remember, she whispered, resist the music, resist the blood. And then she was gone, leaving me alone with the echoing choir and a fragile hope nestled deep within my heart. But as the talisman's weight pressed against my palm, I knew the battle for my soul was only beginning. The cathedral's shadows seemed to pulse with renewed menace, the unseen voices growing louder, drawing me further into their crimson embrace. Yet Sister Miriam's story had given me a weapon, however fragile, against the encroaching darkness. I steeled myself. I would not succumb without a fight. The hymn swelled once more, a sinister melody that promised eternity. But I was no longer just a listener. I was a participant in a deadly game, one that would test the limits of my will, my sanity, and the very essence of who I was. And as the cathedral's walls seemed to breathe and close in around me, I whispered a silent vow. I would find a way to break the curse, or be lost forever in the eternal song. The night stretched on, the choir's lament ringing in my ears. But within me flickered a fragile ember of hope, kindled by the spectral figure of Sister Miriam. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, but I would walk it, guided by the faintest light of compassion and the desperate will to survive. With the talisman burning cold in my hand, I stepped deeper into the cathedral's heart, ready to face whatever horrors awaited. The choir's song was not yet my fate, yet the question lingered, heavy and unyielding. Could I truly resist the Crimson Choir's eternal hymn? Or was my soul already entwined in the cursed melody? The cathedral waited, silent but alive, as my story unfolded within its bloodstained walls.